Hello and welcome to podcast episode number 6. This is the Coach's Corner, and we're back. We've had a little break during lockdown, but we thought we'd get back. Of course, myself and Jack are here, but we had to come back with a bang. So we thought we'd bring in my good mate, ex-Liverpool, ex-Middlesbrough, ex-Fylde, now Morecambe midfielder, Tom. Tom Brewitt.
Yeah.
How are you, lad? You okay?
Yeah, Sam, how are you, mate? All right?
Yeah, good. How's lockdown treating you?
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it, for everyone? Because
Yeah,
my days usually filled with training, and at the minute you're having to keep yourself fit and look after your body on your own sort of thing. So
yeah.
it's not been ideal, but a lot of people would find it much more difficult than me.
Yeah. Have you got like stuff that you've been sent by the club, or is it literally just down to yourself?
So the first couple of weeks when we were on lockdown, our sports scientist sent us a programme to follow, but that was sort of expecting the season to get back going. So our last game was middle of March. We were sort of expecting to play again in April, May. Obviously, that's not being the case. So we've been put on furlough with the club topping up 20% that the government aren't paying. So effectively, the club's not allowed to ask us to do any work because that's the rules of furlough. If you're asked to do work, the government can't be paying your wage while you're working. So you just sort of got to look after yourself. But to be fair, the club's being good because the sports scientists and the gaffer and everyone's there for you if you need them. So can't complain.
Good stuff. Well, I thought what we'd do, we'd kind of go from the start, really, because obviously, you know, I've known you since we were younger, but you know, a lot of people might not know like your story and your experience and stuff like that. So we thought we'd start really, just like obviously when we were younger, everyone wanted to grow up and be a footy player like that. You know, when you're from Liverpool and you play footy on Saturday League, and you know, I know like when you were at Marshalls and stuff like that, like everyone had one goal, they just wanted to be a footy player, and like you did that, and like you shined for Liverpool when you were 10. Like, what was that like at the time? Was it just like I'm just playing footy, or was it like special?
I think because of how it come about, it was special because you'll know because we grew up together. When at 8, I had a trial at Liverpool for the under-9s, and he didn't sign me the first time. So how it works when you're younger, the scouts would come and watch your Saturday League, and then they'd invite you for a 6-week trial. So you'd go into the academy and be part of the under-9 setup for 6 weeks, and they'd assess whether they wanted to sign you or not. And after my first trial at under-9s, they said no. They then invited me back the next year for the under-10s and said, come back next year. And to be fair, that summer, because I went under-10s towards the end of the year, and at that point, I was playing for Liverpool Schoolboys. I was one of the captains of Liverpool Schoolboys. And so I had Liverpool, Everton, and a few others just sniffing around, wanting me to go in. And because I'd been rejected twice by Liverpool, it was a bit of a case of like, I'm not really sure I want to go back and get rejected. Like, Everton want me to go in, like, maybe I should try there or just stick with the Schoolboys for the time being. It was my dad that was like, hold on, this is Liverpool. You don't turn down Liverpool, whether they want you for 6 weeks or they want you for 6 months. You go in and you do your best. And to be fair, that I went in at the very start of the under-11 year. So I was a 10-year-old and signed. So it was special anyway, but because of the rejection the first 2 times, it became even more special because it felt like I'd earned it.
Like how serious was it under 10s at Liverpool? Because I know like Jack was a coach at Morecambe, weren't you, at that similar age group, and like was it like pretty serious, or was it just like a couple of times a week?
When I was with the 12s last year, and at the end of under 12s, that's when you're either getting released or you're getting another 2-year contract. So. And when we first came in, we had a pretty small squad, so we still had to sign a good few players. So when the scouts were bringing players in, you know, at the start, the players that we were getting weren't good enough, but we knew that we needed players. So it was like, we need the next bunch of players who they're going to bring in to be good for us. And thankfully for us, around about like the November time, they brought about 5 or 6 really good players in, and they all stayed on. But the problem we had was if we signed a player in November until the end of the season, and then we release them, that doesn't look very good. That looks like our judgment's been poor. So we didn't want to sign a player in November to release them in May because we thought that doesn't look good on us as coaches. So we only signed the players that in November that we thought, okay, we're going to be giving them a 2-year contract in May. But in terms of the players and the parents, they were desperate, all of them, to get the 2-year deal. And to be fair to the club, they kept every one of the players on in the squad because they kind of wanted them to have 2 full years as a squad and not just 6 months and stuff. But you find nowadays that there is a lot of pressure on the kids, and it does stem from the parents a little bit as well, because some of the messages you get from the parents and some of the things you have to deal with. I don't know if you've seen it yourself, Tom, when you're at Liverpool, if they have like this thing now where all players have got to play 50% game time in the academies. And, we had a kid last year who's, he was above that, but his parents weren't happy about his game time. But, me and my assistant coach, we were like, well, he's on 66% game time. So, that's not our issue. We're trying to help the players who we feel are the strongest in the squad. So how can you develop your best players if you've got to give everybody the equal amount of game time every week? If someone's having a really good game and at a position which they're strengthening at, but you've got to bring somebody on, it kind of like defeats the object of actually developing the better player. So it is a difficult situation, because when the contracts are up for grabs for the players, it's kind of like it's like with the parents more than the players. It's like who's the bigger dog in the fight in terms of it.
Yeah,
it's quite weird.
Was that similar with you, Tom? Like at that age, was it serious in terms of you thinking about the future, or were you just playing footy?
A bit of both. I think looking back, I was just playing footy, but at the time I thought it was stressful. So I remember the game after I signed at under 11s, we went away to Sheffield United, and this is how much it stuck with me. This is 13 years later, and I can still remember it clearly. They used to do thirds. I don't know if they still do that, Jack, at that age group, where you 3 thirds of 25 minutes. I didn't start the game. I come on in the second third. I think we were 4-1 up when I come on. I come off when it was 5-0. And it was like, that's not good. I was a centre half. Like, this is not good. And I remember Phil Roscoe, who's now the head of education and welfare at the academy, was a good, kind of like a mentor sort of. He's always been there for me. I could go to him with anything at Liverpool.
Yeah.
But he was the 11s coach at the time, and he gave me both barrels as a 10-year-old. And he was telling me that this isn't schoolboy football. You need to get your head in it. Like, now that we signed, you've took your foot off the gas, all this. And I held my lip, but I wanted to cry. There and then I was just like, and then my dad and my granddad were at the game. I've got in the car with them to go home, and I just burst into tears. I was like, oh my God. And then the next... Go on.
Was that like the first time you realised, like, there's pressure?
Yeah.
Or was it all like this is a big club?
That was the first time I realised this isn't just a game anymore. This is like, this is going to be my life. And it's every single game I play now, that's going to be what it's going to mean. And I did it anyway. And it wasn't a case of I didn't appreciate it before that game, because you know yourself from when we were little, I always wanted to win anyway, regardless whether it was on the playground, in the park, whatever. I always took it seriously, probably too seriously. So when Phil said that to me, it was sort of like, yeah, you're right. And I wasn't good enough. So from then on, I had to attack every game. And it's cliche, but act like it was your last one.
Yeah.
Did you find when you were younger, Tom, that when you were at Liverpool, when you came through at 10, 11, did they kind of set a position for you at their age groups? Obviously, because how many asides is different, so you'll probably be starting off at 7-a-side, then moving to 9-a-side, 11-a-side. As those formats changed, did you find that your position changed with that?
Personally, no, because I was a centre half, and from the age of 5, I played centre mid a little bit, and that's where I've ended up playing now. But I was always a centre half, and I never really changed because my attributes suited being a centre half. So I talked, I could read the game, like it fit. And it wasn't really until senior football where gaffers, rightly or wrongly, started saying, well, you're not 6'5", that I became a centre mid. Because all the way through in youth, as a centre half, I had no problem. But for other people, so Jordan Roster, for example, me and him were centre halves together at under 11, under 12s. At under 13s, 14s, when we went into, like you say, 9-a-side, 11-a-side, he'd become a centre mid and stayed that way and is still a centre mid now. So I think in the main, it wasn't a case of they tried you in a lot of positions, and I don't know if it's different now. But for me, I was always a centre half.
Yeah. Well, that's it. What I find is that, like, with certain players, we transitioned last year. We started off at 9-a-side, but then halfway through the season, the club was saying to us, we're transitioning to 11-a-side halfway through the season. So, like, we had players who might be playing left wing at 9-a-side on a pitch which is so much smaller. Like, we had quite a small, in terms of, height wise, age group. So we were thinking to ourselves, when we go to 11-a-side, we're going to struggle here because, we've got kids who won't be able to cover the ground in those areas. So we started playing players in different positions and trying different formations out just to see if they could kind of fill them roles in different areas. Not because it was trying to help us out. We were trying to help the players out. So when it went to 11-a-side, they weren't transitioning to struggle because they went from playing on a pitch. I'm sure you've seen the grass pitches at Morecambe when you first go into the college, that first grass pitch on your left. They've gone from playing on a small under 9-a-side pitch to playing on that big pitch halfway through a season. It's just, I think it was a bit, like, for me and for the players, I think it was a big shock to them. They transitioned to it well because, like, we adapted positions and stuff. But, for a player at the age of 12, I think that can be a lot for them to have to take under, especially after halfway through the season as well.
So what was so then you go 11, 12, and then once you kind of keep on going through the age groups, does it get more serious every year? Because I know then you went to England kind of 15, 16. Is that kind of like every year you're just fighting for your place until you get to, like, the point where you're like 18?
Yeah, and even then you're fighting for your place.
Yeah, of course.
So, like you say, I signed a 1-year contract, 11s, 12s, 13s, 14s. At 14, you sign 2 years. So you get your 15, 16 year. And then at 16, there's a decision on your scholarship. Yeah. And then at 17, you can sign your pro. So every year, you're looking towards, right, when am I going to get told? What have I got to do to get my next contract to guarantee I'm going to be here next year or for the next 2 years? And like you say, because I always felt like I was one of the good players in our age group, sort of. My expectations were to get the contracts as soon as possible into the next year, or, like you say, get the England trials at 15 and then play for England at 16 and keep doing that, and then get your scholarship as early as possible, then get your pro contract as close to 17 as possible. Yeah. And it wasn't always the case. It wasn't always smooth sailing for me. My scholarship decision come probably, I think it was after Christmas, whereas a lot of the lads were told before Christmas in our under 16 year. So that was hard in itself because I was thinking, well, I thought I was one of the better players here and I'm expecting to get England. Well, I've been playing for England. Why have I not got my scholarship yet? Why have I not got my pro contract yet? Because you sort of look around, and you shouldn't do, and it's one of the best bits of advice I've ever had from my old Resi coach. But you look about at your mates who's signing these longer contracts and you're thinking, what have I got to do to get one? But then again, when it comes, you feel like you've earned it.
What was because we kind of brushed over England there, but it's not really something we should probably brush over. Like 16, the 15 when you first. So I played England under 16s in the Victory Shield. So the summer of pre-season effectively of under 16, you go to England trials, and ours were at Warwick University, because St George's hadn't been finished by then. So it's effectively the 40 best players in the country go down to Warwick University for, I think it was 3 or 4 days. Basically, the coaches just have a look at you. They get to put their own sessions on. You play 11v11, and you then pick a squad from there. And the Victory Shield worked where we played Northern Ireland first, Wales second, and Scotland last. And it was sort of a case of there were 2 different squads for the Northern Ireland and the Wales game. And then the last game against Scotland, which is the crunch game, it was sort of like the best squad they could put together from the first 2 played against Scotland. So, like you say, from 15, I was competing at international level and fighting for my place on that stage. Yeah. Well, what was that like? Was that a step up again in terms of like preparation, like everything to do with England? Is that like another level, or is that just like completely different type of pressure?
Yeah, so the Victory Shield, I don't think it still goes on now.
I remember that was on Sky Sports, wasn't it?
Exactly, yeah, that's what I was going to say,
Yeah.
is where it was the first time that you'd play on Sky Sports. So it was a massive deal at the time. It was like everyone was going to be watching, all your mates at home were watching, where they probably wouldn't come to Kirby and watch at the academy, but everyone and the dog was going to watch Sky Sports when you were on the telly playing against Northern Ireland. So it was a big pressure, and it was the first time you were representing your country. So it was like, wow, this is real. And again, it was one of them sorts of pinch yourself moments where, right, and again, when you look back, I sort of took it in my stride, because in my head, I expected to do it. I wanted to do it. And from 14, 15, my ambition and my targets were to do it. So when it come, it was like, yeah, I've achieved my target. What next? You know what I mean? And whereas looking back, it's like, that was a big achievement.
I guess, like, even talking to you, just like that's just like 5 years of your career. But like, the mental side of the game, like how many times there have you spoken about, like, how many times you've kind of been like pushed back, or you've had challenges, you don't know whether you're getting your scholar, you don't know whether you're going to get your next contract. Like, how big do you think the mental side of the game is growing up through a big academy? Because like, it must just be, you just have to be so resilient.
I honestly think it's the biggest. So I think when you get to an academy, if you're still in an academy like Liverpool or Chelsea, Tottenham, United, one of the big academies, if you get to 16, you've had probably 3, 4, if not 10 years of top level coaching. So in terms of the technical side of the game, you'll be as good as most in the country. What decides from then whether you go into the professional game or just stop playing football, for me, is the mental side, because like you say, you just get constantly knocked back, and you set a target and you don't reach it, and you're like, or there's a decision between you and another player, and the other player goes ahead of you, and you're thinking, well, I think I'm better than him, so what's happened? Or you don't quite get the contract you want, or you don't quite get the exposure into. So as an 18-year-old, you want to play in the resis. As a reserve player, you want to play in the first team. So you never really appreciate what you're doing at the time, because you're always looking for what's next. So in terms of the mental side of it, I think it's the biggest.
And was that the case then when you went and signed your pro? Like, was that just another step? Were you just like, okay, cool? Or was that like, whoa, I've signed the pro at Liverpool?
Again, it was a bit of both, where like, I think the people around me made me understand how big of a deal it was. So me dad, me brother, me mates, they all sort of, I think they probably realised more than me how big a deal of it was. Because like you say, I was in that system, and that's what I expected myself to do. I expected myself to get a pro contract because I'd worked every day to get it. So when it come, it was like, well, yeah, I've deserved to get it. You know what I mean? So it's like, it was big, and it was a big moment, and I was very proud to do it. And like I say, my family and my friends around me made sure I understood it. But equally, the minute I signed it, I was working towards the next one. I had a goal within the next week, the next month, where I couldn't even enjoy it. You know what I mean? Because I signed it and I wanted to play in the reserves the next week. Or
that's like the unbelievable attitude to have, though, isn't it? Did you notice any players around you and in the academy and stuff that you thought that maybe he kind of just takes it for granted that he's being here? Or, once they get a contract, I remember seeing Benitez saying once about like the difference. I think England were going through a spell where they weren't really producing the players, or they were reaching 18, 19, getting a pro contract, and kind of dropping down a little bit. Did you ever notice, like, in terms of a difference between the foreign players in the academy and some of the English players in terms of their like work ethic, or in terms of once they've got a contract, they're just looking towards the next one, kind of like yourself? Whereas we've seen players locally in the past, once they've kind of got a contract or got a sniff of the first team, you've just seen the levels drop a little bit, because sometimes they think that they've just made it there and then.
Yeah, I think there's definitely an argument to say that some lads, when they sign the first deal, or they sign, I think more importantly, the first big deal, because the majority of first pro contracts aren't on silly money. I mean, for a 17-year-old, it's very good money, because it's what you'd expect it to be. You're 17, you're living at home, and you've got no bills, so you're earning more money than you need. But I think when you do see the slide off is sometimes maybe when you see lads sign a 5-10 grand a week contract for the next 3 years, and it's like, that's a huge amount of money. But then on the back of that, if you don't work during them 3 years, I guarantee you next one's about half the size of it, if not a third of it, because the money between, and I've seen it firsthand, the difference between Liverpool reserve contracts and the first team contracts at Morecambe are massive. And one of them, there's an argument both ways, and I can understand the argument both ways, where the senior lads in the Morecambe team who are in their 30s, they played 400-500 games, and they're earning half of what a Liverpool reserve player's earning. And the Liverpool reserve player's not played a minute in the first team yet. And it's like, and now I completely understand it, because I see what the Liverpool lads have got to go through to get to that pro contract. But they then have to experience the professional game lower down the leagues, because it's a completely different game. The reserve game and genuine league football are just different sports.
Yeah. So when you left Liverpool, was that a hard decision to make, or did you think you went at the right time? Like, because you went to Middlesbrough and then you didn't quite step up to men's football, and you waited, you had another year, didn't you? So do you regret leaving Liverpool at that point, or do you think that was perfect timing for you?
It was probably a year too late. Unfortunately, I signed, and I said this on a podcast I did last week, where the summer, so I signed my first professional contract. So I had my under 19 year effectively, and I played a fair amount of reserve football. I had my setbacks in that year, but it was sort of going to plan. And then my under 20 year pre-season was brilliant, and I was sort of a mainstay in the reserve team and captain the team every now and again, and it was all going to plan. And I sat with the reserve manager Mick Beale and sort of set out the next 3 years of my life to get to where I wanted to be. And then at the end of that August, I found myself watching Thiago Lloris and Mamadou Sakho in the reserve team playing centre half ahead of me, because Thiago being at the Olympics with Portugal, and I'd come back late, and then a transfer that was waiting to happen didn't happen, and Mamadou fell out with Jurgen Klopp for whatever reason. So in the last week of August, I found myself in a position where I need to try and get out and get men's football, because I'm not going to play in the reserves at Liverpool between now and Christmas. So looking back, I probably should have left before that pre-season, because had I known that was coming, it would have put me a year ahead of the game instead of a year behind the game. But I was never to know. And as a 19-year-old, Liverpool put a contract in front of me, and I was never going to say no to it. But with hindsight, which is great to say, it might have been ideal for me at 19, when my stock was maybe a little bit higher as a Liverpool player, who'd played a fair amount of resi games the year before, to go out then and get men's football, men's experience. And the next 6 to 8 months after that, where I found myself sitting on the bench in the reserves, which is a position no one wants to be in, because you don't get any exposure. It just sets you back. And at that point, I knew, and the decision was made. It was made for me by the club, where they just said, listen, if you want a future in the game, it's going to be elsewhere, because you can't move these two in front of you. And the decision is being made by Melwood, where you're probably not going to have a future at Liverpool anymore. So it was difficult, like, at the time. So yeah, I'd say probably could have left a year earlier, but there was no chance you were going to tell me that at 19. I
guess, like, it was because you actually under Rodgers, you had a couple of games on the bench, didn't you? Where you were and like a couple of sessions with the first team. Like, what was that like? You know, going to Melwood. Like, how does that work? You get a call off someone, and like, yeah, you're going to Melwood today, or like, what happens there? What was that like?
Yeah, so under Brendan, it was great for me, because Mike Marsh and Colin Pascoe were just brilliant with the youth, and Marsh was massive on local lads coming through. So he was brilliant for me. And how it worked, where that Melwood and Kirby are different sites, and they're moving Melwood to the Kirby base. I think, I'm not sure how COVID's affected it, but hopefully next season. So you'd report at 9 o'clock or whatever to the academy, you'd go up, have your brekkie, and then the reserve manager, or sometimes it would be the sports scientist, would just come over, tap you on the shoulder and just go, "Oh, get yourself down to Melwood, you need it there today." So the more time you spent down there, sometimes when you'd finish the session at Melwood, like say Marshy or Colin Pascoe would come up to you and go, "Just come back here tomorrow, don't bother going to the academy." And that's how that one would work.
What was it like though? Like first time you went to Melwood training with the first team, were you flapping it, or did you back yourself?
Both, in a really weird way, because it was like you go into Melwood and the reserve changes and there's the first team changing, and you've got to earn your place in the first team changes, which I think is the right thing to do. I don't think you should, when you go down there, you should be in the first team dressing room because you've not earned it. So you sort of, if you go down on your own, you'd usually go down in 3 or 4. There'd be 3 or 4 of you that would be needed. So you'd be getting changed in the reserve dressing room on your own. You'd then walk out into the dressing room, into the corridor, go and put your boots on. And I remember the first time I trained, it was when, I think it was an international break, when Stevie had retired from international duty. And there was a few of us down there sort of making up the numbers for a session. And I remember putting my boots on, and I was like, I'm sat next to Stephen Gerrard putting my boots on. And it's like, I'm 17. But like, in my head, again, it was that whole thing of like, well, yeah, that's what I should be doing at 17, because
you deserve to be here.
Not in an arrogant way, but like in a way where it's like, this is the next step for me. This is what I've got to be doing now. This is the level I need to get to. And then from there, you sort of start building relationships. And Stevie was great with me because, I don't know, he might liken to me, or it might be a local thing, but he was always chatty. He made conversation where like some others might not. And I was lucky. There was never anyone that was difficult with me. There were players that tested you mentally and technically, but Stevie specifically was brilliant with me. And I knew John Flanagan, who was up there from growing up together. I grew up with his cousin at school. So I knew Flano from years and years ago. So it made it easier for me. And then the next time you go up there, when it's not the international break and all the big hitters are there, you sort of have a relationship with a few. So then the next session, it's better, and you can just play your own game then and be the loudmouth, shouty one that I was.
I remember on the Couch podcast him saying when he, I think one of his first sessions, Gerrard just like fizzed the pass into him, and he consoled it, like, and he said, you know, it was all right, but he just had a look from Gerrard to be like, all right, so, you know what I mean, just testing you out. Was there any of that, or was it all right?
Oh no, there's a lot of that. So the first thing you knew when you were going to Melwood, especially under Brendan Rodgers, was where you do the rondo boxes. So there'd be 2 groups of 12, 10 on the outside, 2 in the middle, and you just knew you were going to get tested. If your touch wasn't good enough, you were going to be in the middle, and they were going to make you know that you were in the middle because you were young. So I remember, I ended up in a Spanish box. So it was Moreno, Suarez, Lucas, Luis Alberto, I think Mamadou Sakho was in it. There was a few where like technically very good players.
Yeah.
And Lucas would just fire the ball at you. And like, I mean, like perfect across the grass, but like he'd test you. And if you didn't deal with it, you were in the middle and you were chasing and you were going to get made to show off. So you had to do it. And equally in the middle, if you didn't tackle anyone and you just sort of floated around and didn't press and didn't tackle, you're just going to stay in there. So if you went in the middle, it was a case of get out and get out quickly. And equally when you're on the outside, it was stay out the middle. But I always remember the first time I properly felt like I got hit. We were doing a possession box, a big possession box. I think it was sort of 10v10. And I was training really well. I was backing myself. I was sort of getting on the ball, giving it, running. And like I say, I was a centre half at the time, so it wasn't really my forte to be doing that. But I found myself in the middle of the big box, and I took a pass, turned, played it out, and sort of jogged off. But as I played the pass, Lucas just sort of hit me from behind, and not in a nasty, malicious way, but like in a way which is like, if you're going to be good, this is how we train.
Just competitive.
Yeah, just trained properly. It wasn't a case of like, it wasn't like he was coming for me. It was just like proper, this is how I press, this is how I work. Yeah. And the intensity they all trained at, it never dropped, ever.
It's like first impressions for you, isn't it? That's what it is. Like when you're in that rondo, and like if they know that you're not capable of taking that first touch when they're pinging it into, it's like, who's this kid to bring them down? So it's like you say, you probably haven't had that at the reserve with the reserve team through the academy. But when you get to the first team, it's if they're bringing players in from the academy, I think the players need to know: can we trust them? Can we get them into this environment? In terms of like, if you're in the middle and you're just pottering about, when we're speaking about like hard work and stuff like that, if you're running your ass off and you're diving into challenges, no matter who the player is, if it's Stevie G and you put him on him, at least he knows, well, this kid doesn't care who I am, he's going to put one on me. So if he plays for the first team and he's playing against Diego Costa against Chelsea, he's going to put one on him as well. I think that's what players you see with the stories when you first go up to the first team. That's what happens.
Yeah, definitely. And even a case of like, on like a banter side of it, where like, they'll give you a little bit to see how you take it, to see whether you fold or whether you sort of... And it's not malicious. These aren't the fellas who are sitting there going, I'm going to test him today. It's just natural what you do. Yeah. And sometimes when you give a bit back, they go, all right, fair enough. Ryan McLaughlin told a story on a podcast he did not long ago where he was the linesman for the first team. And he was only 16, fresh out of... He only come over from Ireland about a week before, and he found himself being a linesman for the first team. And I can't remember who it was, but someone's gone through and Sebastian Coates has wiped them out. So McLaughlin's flagging, gives the penalty. Mike Marsh gives the penalty. Craig Bellamy runs over to him and just gives him everything. And McLaughlin, because McLaughlin was McLaughlin, give him a bit back because he had that personality. And while he was never mates with Bellamy on the back of it, a lot of the other senior lads and the senior staff went, all right, he can handle himself, fair enough. And there's definitely an element of that when you went up there. If you didn't handle yourself, they smelt blood and you wouldn't spend much time there after that.
Would you say that kind of mentality is something which really like helped you going forward when you've moved clubs? Because you didn't move clubs for 10 years. So what was that like then when you did and you went into a completely new environment and moved away? Was that hard for you?
Yeah, I don't think I quite understood myself at the time when sort of between the May and New Year, probably I wasn't quite myself. And I've talked about it a lot, and I wouldn't quite say it was depression, but I wasn't really myself. Because it was very difficult to live, like you say, over half my life I'd spent at Liverpool, and then he turned around and said he didn't want you. And it was like, bubble popped. Now what? Now you've got to move 2.5, 3 hours away from home to go and try and have a career in Middlesbrough. And it was like, this is hard. This is really hard. First time I lived on my own, on the back of this bubble getting popped, it was difficult. But in terms of the football side of it, my standards never dropped. So I went into Middlesbrough and I was made captain of the reserves within 2 weeks of being there. And I was training with the first team quite a lot under Gary Monk. And I think, like you say, because I'd had that exposure at Liverpool of training with first team and training with world-class players, when you go there and their first team's demanding of you, you can understand it because I've done this. You know what I mean? I know what level's expected. So it certainly stood me in good stead. But like I say, on the mental side of it, again, having to deal with that rejection at 20 was difficult for me.
Was that like, because you only had a year in Middlesbrough, didn't you? And then you moved on to Fire. Did you, at that point, were you just like, right, I need men's football.
Yeah, exactly. So under Gary Monk, I had a lot of exposure to the first team.
Yeah.
I think my time at Middlesbrough might have been slightly different. If he had stayed, he had a lot of time for me, and we sat and again discussed my career plan, my career goals, like you do with managers who respect you and want you to do well. And he basically had the meeting with me in sort of October, November time and said, right, love you as a lad. I think you can have a 20-year career in the game, but you need men's foot, you know. So the plan initially was to go on loan in the January, and then if that went well, they would extend my contract. But two things happened. Gary Monk got sacked middle of December, and Tony Pulis come in. And Pulis being Pulis,
probably a nightmare for you, like.
Yeah, when he come in, I was gutted because I knew the writing was on the wall for me, and I didn't really think he would have any time for me at all. But at the time, Dale Fry, who was a centre-back who was my age as well, had been injured. So when Pulis come in, Dale had to play centre-half in the Resis with me. So Pulis watched the first few Resi games quite keenly on centre-half because one of his best young players in Dale was showing what he could do there. And Pulis noticed me and noticed how I talked and organised and everything. And he sat me down, I think it was in the March, and he basically said, listen, again, I love you as a lad, and like, if you ever need me to call anyone, I will for you. And I think you'll have a career in the game, but you're not going to play for me because I like what I like in the back four, back five. And effectively was telling me that I wasn't 6'4", and that was how it was. And I didn't mind that because I completely understood why he was saying it. I didn't agree with it, but he looked me in the eye and he sat me down after lunch and said, listen, that it is what it is. I like what I like, and you don't quite fit that. So go elsewhere, get game time, and then see where your career takes you. And I'd much rather that than him sitting there and going, well, maybe, see what happens in a year, knowing full well I wasn't going to play for him. He was a man who I massively respect on the back of it. He was just dead straight, who just told you how it was, and that's how he wanted to play. And equally on the back of it, how I want to coach my teams when I go into coaching, go into managing, I'll take a little bit from what I saw in him because defensively he was unbelievable.
So leave Middlesbrough, then go into men's football. How different was that? Obviously, you move into the conference as well. So was that like in terms of kind of like just level of club, but also just like training and everything? Was that very different, it being men's football, or did you kind of take that in your stride?
Again, I probably had a bit of arrogance when I went to Files, where it was like, I've been at Liverpool, I've been at Middlesbrough, I should come in and play every minute of every game.
Yeah.
And a lot went on that summer where I was very indecisive in what I wanted to do and where I wanted to play. And Files basically asked me to go in there and offered me a contract. And I sort of thought, well, yeah, I'll go in, I'll play 30, 40 games and then I'll get a move. While I got the move at the end of it, it wasn't quite as smooth as that. I only ended up playing 20 games. But the initial impression was a case of like, we trained. So the ground of Files unbelievable. It's brand new. The pitch is brilliant. Yeah. The facilities aren't bad. But we trained at their old ground and we'd warm up on like a bit of grass next to the old ground. And it was just like a world apart from Melwood. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is that an eye-opener for you in terms of like what it can be like at them, even League One, League Two sometimes?
Yeah, and Files, no disrespect to Files, because they probably have better facilities than some clubs in League Two and League One. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like the stadium's brand new, the education centre where you get changed and everything, the 3G pitch is brand new. It's all good facilities, but you understand what's missing and how far ahead clubs like Middlesbrough and Liverpool are. And you think, Files are a club that's grown quickly, and I think I'm not sure how the conference is finishing this year and whether they're going to stay up or not. I hope they are, but I can see them being in the league and easily in the next 3 or 4 years because they've got the infrastructure to support it. But it was definitely an eye opener in terms of how clubs like that operate.
Do you think
the demand like?
Do you think like all players? Because we had it last year. We played Man City in like it's like a Northwest like cup, and Man City came to Morecambe, turned up under 12s on Ellison's coach, all go to the same school. Darren Fletcher's son was playing and stuff, and they beat us, fair and square, which they should. It's Manchester City playing against Leeds through Morecambe. But, we spoke to the coaches after the game and they said, these lads need to realise that a lot of them are going to be playing at this level when they're older. And he said sometimes they'll go onto the pitch when they're training at City and they're like, the balls are a bit too hard, or can you water the pitch? And it's like our lads turn up and they're using like 2-year-old miters on like a quarter of a 3G pitch and like not thinking about it. Whereas I think these players, if they had that eye opener at an early age, it kind of makes them work harder to get to the top. Whereas if they're getting low, let go at City at 16 and all they've had is just privilege, everything at that club, I think a lot of them would struggle when they go down to the lower levels if they haven't got the attitude like yourself has got, which is, I think, like players need that sometimes.
Yeah, I think there's definitely an argument for that. Again, I can see it both ways, where when you're at Liverpool and you're at City, you should have the best because you're at Liverpool and you're at City. But that has to be with the caveat of this isn't what real football is.
Yeah.
So when you're in the 18s and you're in the resis, it's great and you're earning decent money and you're playing on decent pitches, but you're playing in front of no one over weekends, which is the first major change because there aren't many people that come and watch resi games. And the level at which you're playing, while it's probably the best in the country for under 21s, under 23s, it's a different game. You have the ball, then we have the ball, and you go into the league and 3 points are on the line, the manager's job's on the line, your mortgage is on the line, putting food on the table for the kids is on the line, where you just don't get that at reserve football. And so the sooner I think you can open your eyes to that, the better.
Is that the difference in like demand then from like when you're at a club like Liverpool in the resis or whatever, and then you go to the league and you're playing, away to whoever on a Saturday afternoon, like the difference is that like people actually on a, for Morecambe, for example, it's like you say, it's people's like livelihoods and people's fighting to make sure they still got another contract next year to pay the mortgage and stuff like that. Is the demand just like on another scale then that you've experienced when you went there?
Yeah, definitely, because, and I would compare Morecambe and Liverpool resi as opposed to Fyle, because Morecome's goal every year is to survive, is to stay in the league. So therefore the implications of going down on the club is massive. So the manager knows that, and then the players know that. So playing for Liverpool resis, we could play Chelsea, Tottenham, United, Arsenal, Everton in a month, and we could lose every game 4-0. But in that time, if 4 of our lads play for Liverpool first team and do okay, or even if one of our lads plays for Liverpool first team and does well, the reserve manager's done his job and he ain't getting sacked. Yeah. He'll never get sacked in terms of results. He's got to produce players for the first team. Now, the majority of players that get into first teams come from good teams because the level's higher and the demand's higher. Of course there is.
Yeah.
But that said, if there's a star, there's an absolute diamond in a poor age group, a poor reserve teams, and he gets in the first team, then the reserves and the coaching staff have done their job because they produced for the first team. So you compare that to Morecambe, where if we lost 4 in a row, 5 in a row, the gaffer's gone. Not even like to the point where there wouldn't even be an argument. The manager would understand it, the players would understand it, and it would be like, well, yeah, we've let the manager down, the manager's let the board down, and unfortunately the manager's the one that gets the bullet. So it's just a completely different mindset to when you go into a game, because when you go into a game of a Monday night for the resis, you just want to develop. when you go into a game on a Saturday afternoon and there's 2,000 people who've paid money to come and watch it play, and that's what's holding the club up, and that's what's keeping the manager's job. You have to perform, and not even perform. You have to win, because if you don't perform and you win, no one cares.
What I think is like difference in terms of like the academies at Liverpool and Morecambe is like, you know, when we were with the players last year, you know, we sat down and was like, if we're trying to develop players for Morecambe's first team, what's Morecambe's philosophy? So it's winning games, but it's not playing tiki-taka football. It's winning as we can. So what we used to do was like, it wasn't just based on possession-based football. We were developing the kids in terms of counter-attacking. If it's when we can keep possession, we keep possession, but we can't just have like one way of playing. Whereas when you're at Liverpool, you're playing on an absolute carpet, aren't you? So, and Liverpool's first team play possession football as well as counter-attacking football, because the opposition they're playing against, they're going to come and sit back. But when you're at these lower league clubs, so there's going to be tons of them out there, you know, you still try. We play, let's say, Port Vale away, under 12s on a Sunday, and they're trying to play out from the back. It's like their first team's not doing that, so why not try clipping it to the fullback? And you know, your assistant manager now, John McMahon, he was the head of coaching when I was there, and he said to me, he said, "What's playing out from the back?" And you know, we literally said it's getting the ball from your goalkeeper to one of your players, whether that's 50 yards off the pitch, whether it's 5 yards to your centre back through to your centre mid. It's like everyone's got this thing now where it's got to be, it's pass from the centre back to the full back, and it's got to look brilliant. But if you get the ball from one end to the pitch and the other, and it goes in the back of the net, especially at that level at League Two, no one's going to be complaining because you're coming away with a win, you know?
Yeah, and I think that's where often the view of the game's distorted, where you look at Man City and they're the prime example of tiki-taka football in England, because they've got Guardiola as a gaffer and he plays through the thirds and he plays possession football. But everyone forgets that their goalkeeper, Ederson, can smack the ball from the floor 80 yards onto Aguero's toe and put him in on goal.
Yeah.
And that is the perfect playing out, because it's one pass, it's onto someone's toe, and it goes in the back of the net. No risks. But the problem with that is it's not that easy. You can't just kick the ball 80 yards. So often the best place is to bring them onto you, play through them. But I completely agree with you. The problem with Liverpool reserves is, especially for defenders, where you are trained every day to play out. You can handle the ball under pressure, you can step through the lines, you can hit the diagonal pass, but you're never exposed to the other team booming the ball on you all game for 90 minutes against someone who's had 20 years experience, probably weighs twice as much as you, and will throw his body into you at every moment he can. Like, so as a gaffer in the lower leagues, to go and watch a reserve game and say, yeah, I'll take that centre-half on loan, that's difficult, because you'll come and watch her and, like you say, you'll get the ball from the keeper inside the box and step through and play a lovely pass. But the manager, when he comes to watch it, he probably doesn't watch you head the ball. You could go a resi game and not head the ball as a centre-half. There's no chance of doing that in League Two. You'd be surprised if you don't head the ball 20, 30 times in one game in League Two. And that's just how the game needs to sort of correct itself, in terms of Liverpool's making players for Liverpool, but only one or two get there. So what happens to the other 16, 17? Can they go into a Morecambe or a Port Vale or a Bradford and perform? And that's where it's difficult.
Yeah, that's where the loan system has to come in, doesn't it? Like, I think, especially like, say, I think if you're a winger or you're a fullback, it's a bit different, because in those wide areas, a lot of the game, so a winger, your main goal is get to the byline, or, you know, we want you to get in behind, be a threat to score. Fullbacks, can you support the play in terms of overlapping and stuff? But at the lower levels, in terms of the fullbacks, the changes for them is they probably stay back a little bit more, probably getting a bit more gradually up to speed with the Premier League where you are now. But in terms of the centre of the pitch, your centre halves, your centre mids and your strikers, your way of playing in the Premier League, so for yourself as a centre back, how many times does a centre half head the ball apart from a goal kick in the Premier League now? Not very many times. You don't really see Van Dijk even doing 5 headers a game maximum. Whereas, and in the centre mid as well, how many passes does Rodri do in a game? 90 to 100. How many passes will somebody playing for Bolton in League One make in a game? But if you look at their interceptions and tackles and duels in a game compared to somebody in a team who's a possession-based team like Man City, it's very rare that they'll be going in for those type of tackles, that's why I think it's good to get them lads out on loan early, just so they can experience it and, like you say, mentally as well. I think you just develop better players, unless you're obviously a Trent Alexander-Arnold, a Dele Alli, who are already at that level to be a first-team player, like a world-class player. If you're not at that level, or you're not getting those opportunities because of the manager or whatever, I think the best thing to do, and I think you'd probably agree yourself, is to say, I should go out on loan and just experience football. And then I'm coming back and I'm going, I know exactly how to play for Liverpool. That's how they want me to play. But if it doesn't work out, I know exactly how to play for Middlesbrough, for the Files, for the Morecambes. And I think it's a shame that not many players get that opportunity these days, because the managers in the lower league, like you say, sometimes they don't want to take a risk on these players, because they think, well, if I take this lad in and he's on 10 grand a week at Liverpool and we've got to cover half his wages, and I bring him in and he's not comfortable heading the ball, the board's going to look at me and go, what are you doing bringing him in for? He doesn't suit our style of play.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the main thing, and where a lot of Premier League clubs will want the salary to be contributed towards, and they'll want a certain amount of game time guaranteed now. Yeah. So the lower league managers are just like, well, yeah, you've got this 20-year-old centre-half who might play for Liverpool, who might play for England one day, but I'm not going to risk him making mistakes for the first 5 games and my job be on the line when I can go and sign someone who's 33. Might not be as technically good, but I know he's not going to cost me any goals. Yeah. So I'm going to sign him for 6 months, and I'm going to have to pay him half the wage of what I'd have to pay in terms of the Liverpool contribution, for example. And he's not going to cost me my job. And as managers, some managers like having youth in, but the majority will prefer experience, and that is why the experience at such a young age is so important.
Sort of thing on that Kev Ellison did on a podcast, where he said he had I think it was last season or whatever, he had some lad come in on loan from United, and he turns up in his big rangy and his Mach and his beats and everything, and then everyone's like, who's this lad? And then he gets on the pitch and he's like dragged off after 20 minutes because he couldn't act, the men's football, the physicality and everything. And it's that like a thing we've been talking about, just about like lads just with an absolute, massive contract, but then actually once it comes to it, and they've got to perform at at that level, when it's more than just like development on the line. Yeah, it's a completely different ball game, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And Kev's told me that story because I wasn't at Morecambe when that happened, and it was one of the first, because I've known Kev for years really as well, because I played schoolboys with his little brother Ryan, and at the time it's like, well, yeah, I can completely see the type of player who will turn up in a range wearing beats, pants below their ass, like 7 pairs of boots, and they'd walk into this change room and think it's going to be easy, and training probably is. Because they probably are technically better than most of the lads in the Morecambe dressing room, but the technical side of it's only a small side of it on a Saturday, because unless you can fight, unless you can win your battles, you don't get to play. You don't get to show people what you can do, because you don't get the ball. So if you're getting ran over, if you're getting bullied by your opposite number, and this can be in the middle of the park, this can be winger versus fullback. If you're getting bullied, you can't show them what you can do on the ball. So there's no point in having all these technical tricks and skills. You've got to be able to play the game first.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely. That's right. Well, I think we probably took enough of your time. So thanks so much for coming on. Appreciate it, and it was good to get a little insight. So yeah, hope you enjoyed that. And yeah, I think we'll be back, try and get, now the Bundesliga is back, try and get a few podcasts out. But if you haven't already, then go and follow and subscribe our stuff. The Instagram is the Coaches_Corner podcast. Coaches Corner _podcast it is. And then the Twitter is Coaches_Corner_. You can subscribe it via Apple and Spotify too. So yeah, thanks so much, Tom. And,
no worries.
And yeah, we'll see you next time.